Most people have bathrooms bigger than 150 square feet, but a growing movement called the tiny house movement has some people living with less.
Yeah, local universities taking advantage of this trend through a new architecture class. And WSBT-22's Kristen Bean joins us live in the studio. And Kristen, they had some hurdles to go through to get this whole thing moving?
Yeah, that's right. The architecture students, they designed, they then built their own tiny houses. The idea was to get them to go beyond what they draw, build it, and see it in 3D. From the outside, it looks like a very pretty garden shed. But this tiny house is actually a house.
Well, welcome to our Bayview tiny house.
Andrews University Dean of Architecture, Carrie Karscallen, gave us the official tour. Bathroom on the left, kitchen on the right.
So that's about it for the tiny house.
The house was one of two built over the course of 2 semesters by architecture students. The idea to give them hands-on construction experience.
It's one thing to design a house, put it on paper, but when you actually build something, you gain a lot more knowledge, and they actually can understand then what it means, those lines, what they actually mean.
The tiny house is built on an 8 by 18-foot trailer and includes about 158 square feet of living space. They built the tiny house because, let's face it, a tiny house takes less time to build. And the tiny house movement is growing in popularity as people advocate living with less.
So this is a tiny house. You come up.
Students are still working on the other tiny house, which will also be as tiny. But when it comes to what they learned, it may be a tiny house, but it was one big lesson. The school invested about $15,000 in each tiny house. They hope to sell them and then reinvest the money back into the program. There are already people inquiring about buying them. In fact, they get calls all the time.
Yes, so the hurdles living in these tiny houses.
Yeah, okay, so Karscallen tells me there are a few issues right now. One, banks don't recognize them as a true house, so getting financing if you want to buy one is kind of difficult. 2, most city ordinances require houses to at least have 1,000 square feet, so right now they're classified as RVs, and a lot of cities don't allow a person to live in an RV year-round. And 3, at least for me, I need a bigger playroom than 150 square feet.
That's what you were saying earlier. If you're just by yourself, you know,
well, maybe it's like a second home where you camp. Kids can stay in a tent, you know, but
I'm good with that.
Not a full-time thing for me, at least.
All right, thank you, Kristen.
All right, the time right now is 6:39. Pope Francis is making some waves this morning with a brand new stance on global warming. We'll tell you what he said.
And there seems to be